welcome everybody. This is the Fireside chat with me, Jyoti from Xanara. I have a very dear guest, a fresh face right from Singapore joining us. Meera, that's Meera Vasudevan. A little background about how Meera and I got introduced. I was in Singapore for the Grand Prix. Invited there in I think in September 2019, and we were there on the same dais, and we were introduced, and we just immediately connected. And that's a connect. Two different women, two different spheres of life, two different industries. We just connected as dear friends. But over the journey, we realized that there's a lot of commonalities in what we want to do in our lives, and a common thought process, and Meera is here, so she was kind enough to join us. Thank you very much, Meera, for joining me.
Thank you, Jyoti, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here chatting with you. As always, it's fun talking to you.
Yeah, we always talk. It's been almost, a year? We haven't seen each other for a good now.
Yeah. Feel that year from hell, so yeah.
Yes, it has. How has it been for you in Singapore? The COVID?
Actually, not too bad. I can't complain. Compared to the news I see, it was tough in the first few months, but then can't complain. Life is almost normal here. We're going about our work, and now we're back at the offices now. I'm back at work in the office. No more cozy home office. So
fantastic.
Yeah.
Tell me something. I mean, I remember following your journey, right? I mean, we've spoken a lot about your passion for food, your journey from India, from the South, Chennai, or then back to the US, then at least maybe about more than 2 decades in the US, and then, gravitating towards Singapore. And you've done it all, right from your graduation to starting off a company, building it up, and merging it, then probably even, having a sale, then coming and restarting again in Singapore. I mean, that must be a journey. I really want to hear this, because not many people really repeatedly do it. They may probably just create, sell, be happy, take a back seat, but you are just driven. I look at you all the time, and I hear you. I mean, every time I call you, right, and I speak to you on the phone, you've got this voice which just says, let's just do it. So tell me a little bit, tell me a little bit about the preferred brands. I know about preferred brands, and I know that, part of the mass food, and then obviously you have the seesaw, but I just want to know a little bit of journey, and then I go into your personal motivational elements.
Okay, so my journey, it's sort of been motivated by insanity, I would say, in the sense that, I probably am a sucker for just, doing punishing things, but it's been fun. Yeah, well, I began in market research in Bombay.
Yes.
And, just a little small nugget before that, I actually spent a couple of years, I think 2 or 3 years in Chennai before that. I was at the Goethe Institute, where I was, it's a German language institute, where I was actually training to be a German teacher. So yeah,
I didn't know that part about your.
See, I've got some secrets hidden.
I know you were in Chennai, but I didn't know that part. So good, that's interesting.
So among other things, also so had a stint in a German institute. But yeah, I spent a large part of my life in India, in Bombay. I was in market research, and in fact, we were at that time. This was a breakaway company from a big IMRB, It was called MARG at that time, Marketing and Research Group. It's part of Nielsen today. Yes. And we actually pioneered a lot of very innovative new techniques of market research in India, including qualitative research, which was fairly unknown at that time. And as you know, quantitative research can only go so far in a complex culture like India. It's what I call a high context culture, where decoding consumers, decoding cultural and social norms that can make or break brands really has to come from qualitative analysis as well, as much as from quantitative, perhaps a little bit more at that time, because we needed to get our arms around the consumer. So yeah, did that for a decade, spent my time in Marg, and then there were 3 women actually. We quit and we set up our own company in India. It was India's first and India's largest qualitative research company. It's called Quantum Consumer Solutions.
Which year was this?
This was in 1990. And yeah, and so we set it up, and from day one we set up 5 branches in India, set up a branch in Sri Lanka. Today, my partners at that time, ex-partners, I cashed out a few years later when I moved to America, but they are still running it, and it is today a huge success. It's got branches in all over Southeast Asia, branch in Beijing, branch in London, and they're doing some fantastic work. I'm still very much in touch with them, and so proud of where Quantum is today. It's an amazing journey. Yeah, so I did that for a while. I did some fun stuff in research, market research.
Okay.
I think it shaped me in many ways, because one thing that it gave me was the ability to provide consumer insights and the ability to use that for innovation.
Right.
So if you're talking about product innovation or innovation pipelines that you build for the future, I think those years of honing consumer and social insight have been very, very useful. And even today, I lean into and tap into those skills that I was taught then and that I developed over the years.
Right.
And it helps me to run my business today. And now I'm on the other side of the fence. I'm not the researcher looking at the brand from the outside. But when I went to the US in 1992, I took a year and a half off just to get to understand America, and got a good understanding of what was going on. And then at that time set up a consulting firm with 2 other partners, one of whom was my husband, Ashok. And I'll tell you a little more about that whole journey later. That was fun. And so we set up a consulting firm where we were looking at cross-border entry strategies for US corporations looking to enter India. Remember 1992, Narasimha Rao and India opened.
But basically, you have an entrepreneur bug in you right from the beginning.
I think so. Yeah.
Right? Yeah. So that's what it shows, because you always say, right, I explored, I started. So you've always been a very creative person. You always wanted to break the mold.
Perhaps I'm just an impatient person. Who knows? I just want to do it my way and get it done.
Nothing wrong. So, okay, continue then.
Yeah, so we did that for some time, and then we, as you know, started off the food business side by side. I mean, because it was just something that I saw. I was looking at megatrends in America, and that again is part of my research training. And the megatrends in the early 90s in America indicated that time was right for a few things. One, time was right for really convenient foods. The time was right for healthy, natural, organic foods. That was a boom in America. And at the time was right for more global flavors than just Italian or Mexican. And at that point, we created this company called Preferred Brands, based in Connecticut, where I was living.
Yes.
And set up this, it's launched a brand called Tasty Bite all across North America, selling to mainstream Americans. We didn't sell to the ethnic community because it's a small community. It's 1 million people. Yes. I mean, so you sell to them and then you do what? So I said, okay, let's take Indian and Asian food and make it mainstream. And we used to joke that we're going to move Americans from mashed potato to Bombay potato. So that was a joke internally. And so that was a journey of Tasty Bite, which is really a line of international ready-to-eat foods, all natural and organic.
Sure.
And launched all over, and then did that for 25 years actually, and became a global brand. We have a successful branded presence in a few countries, and we also have a successful institutional presence in India.
Nice, very good.
And 2 years ago, sold that business to Mars Foods, and relocated to Singapore because I wanted to be in Asia, because I think that there's a lot of action right now, in Asia. This is really, so there's a tilt in the axis of the globe, and I think Asia is really leading the charge.
Oh, you have the bug again, you had the wheels on your feet.
It's fun, yeah. So moved across the world, came to Singapore, loving it here, and we set up our current business, which is CISO, Center for the Spread of Affordable Wellness. And again, looking at food, looking at wellness through food. So we haven't really moved too much from the whole notion of food, nutrition, wellness, what's good for the earth and what's good for people through food.
But, it's a very common ingredient, like food, food is a necessity of life. But there would have been one motivational factor for someone to get into an industry like this. I mean, was there a driver when you really started this off? Or did you feel there was a lack of attention or a lack of belief or a lack of seriousness to what we eat. So what were you trying to create here when you started Dissolve? Because from preferred brands, tasty bites, mass food, then obviously you have the seesaw now. So it's the common numerator and denominator in this whole journey is food. It's just different forms. One is one you would have created, from the Indian potatoes to the American potatoes, packaged it in a sandwich or whatever, food meals. And now it's a little different thing. But there has to be a motivational factor. You would have seen a gap in the industry to start this off.
Yes.
What was that?
Yeah. So in fact, so the gap you identify only by doing a megatrend analysis. And I'm a firm believer in megatrends. And I think that all good thinking begins from an analysis of megatrends, and which are quite distinct from fads. And you can read a fad and think that's a trend, but you have to know the difference between faddy things that are happening. I think like today's acai berry is tomorrow's kale. I mean, forgive my cynicism, but that's, people chase ingredients and those are faddy things to do. But I think megatrends never go away. They stay for a long time. And one of the biggest megatrends sweeping America at that time and now sweeping the world is that consumers are increasingly saying, hell no, I've had enough with eating unhealthy packaged food because I don't have the time. And women are saying, don't punish me because I don't have the time. I'm a working mother, but I do need to rely on packaged food. But don't make me feel guilty because I look at the back of the pack and I see it has all the chemicals on earth. And why are you putting me on a guilt trip? And so they started leaning in and demanding, higher quality from packaged food manufacturers, from the food industry. They started demanding a certain promise of wellness from the food industry. That was a gap. And increasingly, we saw the arrival of some amazing brands that we take for granted today. All the natural brands, the healthy brands, the organic brands. They took on all the old clunkers, all the old food companies of the 20th century. And, they sort of pushed them and said, we are here and this is the consumer. And that's a trend that is now rolling out across the world. I'm seeing it in Asia. Consumers here are saying the same thing. They're saying, why are we eating unhealthy? And so the desire to live a healthier life is the biggest mega trend that we tap into when we look at food, and when I say health, I mean genuinely healthy food, not tokenized stuff.
Tell me something about Seesaw. How different is that from your preferred brands, Tasty Bites? But
yeah,
I think it's very, very, very different in terms of the appeal.
It is. Yeah, that's a good observation because Preferred Brands is an operating company.
Exactly.
Where manufactured and marketed a line of food. And Seesaw, we also have a research component here in the sense that we have an R&D section where we create product solutions in labs here in Singapore. But it's also got two other legs which we did not have in Preferred Brands. Preferred Brands was pure brand play. Here we also have the R&D that we do for clients or for ourselves. And then the second bucket of Seesaw really is what we call an accubator, which is an accelerator cum incubator where we invest. So think of it like a family office. So we invest in startups, food, beverage, and agriculture startups from around the world. They all have a platform of wellness. And the third bucket is really an advisory services, where we provide, we lean in and provide good old-fashioned advisory and consulting to large food companies, food startups, and to governments. And all to do with, how do you create a better future of food and better future of agriculture for tomorrow?
But is that a very commercial model? I don't think so, compared to Preferred Brands.
No, it is. It is because the R&D part of it is products that we create for clients. And so we do all that R&D, we do the product formulation, all the way up to the pilot, from concept to pilot, and then, they manufacture. And that's one. And the other is the advisory services, where we are retained by companies to provide that kind. And the advisory services are a gamut of it. It can be strategy, it can be finance, it can be marketing, brand, it can be, just about anything that they need us to lead in. It could be innovation pipelines, so that's a bunch of things that we do. Yeah.
So tell me, I also read that you're doing a lot on the, interestingly, I read in your resume, which you sent, about unreasonable group. Enter to an I like the name unreasonable. That's like somebody it's like giving a kid some toys in a basket and he just keeps throwing up out. It's like, it's like, I don't want to do it kind of a thing.
Exactly.
I mean, what is the, I like the name. Tell me more.
Yeah, I know, isn't it? They're a lovely bunch of people, completely unreasonable. I love them. So it's a US based, it was started there. It's a company called the Unreasonable Group. And what they do is that they actually provide very highly structured, very scientifically and highly structured mentoring programs to startups. They could be startups in pretty much any industry, and they have like buckets of it. They have the food and ag bucket, they have the tech bucket, they have the finance bucket, and so what they do is they identify unreasonable companies. They actually have a team of people that go around the world and scout and find these amazing startups that have the craziest, wackiest, most unreasonable solution to solve a problem. But what is critical is that all the startups they select must have some social good baked into their business model.
What does that mean? Social means something to do?
Something where there's also some aspect of it has to also lean into social good, whether for the environment, for society, for poverty, just for the betterment. So do your business, but you must have something in the business. So for instance, if someone says, I want to make these fat-laden potato chips, they're not going to touch that, But if they say, I'm going to do something that benefits women farmers, and we have this amazing product that they know has native wisdom on nutrition, and that's the kind of chip I'm going to make, and the part of my proceeds go back to these women. So that kind of thinking is what they like. And so what they do is they also, that's one cohort, and then the second cohort that they go around the world and get in to come in with them, and we work for free, is mentors. So right. They tap into people, and I'm part of their mentor group. And we've been doing it for a few years now. And so I go into their sessions. So far till last year, it's been live sessions. So we've gone off-site to some interesting places around the world where you go and you spend 4 days with this group of amazing, unreasonable young entrepreneurs. And we get a bunch of mentors in, and then we co-mingle for about 4 days, and it's intense. It's like intellectually and emotionally very intense. You spend time with them and you help them think through their business, and so there's a lot of sounding board. And if you like, at the end of it, as a mentor, you can also lean in terms of participation in financially. You could invest in them.
Okay, that's what I thought.
So we've also identified a few of our own investee companies through the Unreasonable Group for our incubator as well. And so it's been lovely. It's really been nice.
That's lovely. Going back to your conversation, you were telling me about 3 partners in the US, and out of which one of them is now your husband, Ashok. And you said you're going to sort of expand there a little bit. Is there something?
Yeah, well, you know Ashok, you know him well.
The Iron Man, yeah.
Yes, it does. So Ashok is actually, he and I had parallel career paths up until we went to the US, and then again for a couple of years. He's always been in Unilever, then he joined Pepsi, and I was in research, and then I became an entrepreneur, set up my own businesses. And at some point, I think when he was in Pepsi in the US, he saw what we were doing, me and another partner at that time. And we had set up PBI with preferred brands, and we had set up the consulting. And he said, this is not fair. You guys are having way too much fun, and you don't get to wear suits and ties. And so, I think, I'm going to join you. And so he quit corporate life and jumped in. We were thrilled to have him. So because, he brings some skill sets that are terrific. And I think since that year, I think in 95 or so, we started working together at first with a little bit of trepidation. We thought either we'll kill each other, shoot each other, or we'll just, not make it work. But surprisingly, we found it was very easy to work together with your spouse, as long as you know a few things. One is that, you have to understand what each one does best.
Right.
So, so there are some skill sets he brings and some things that he looks after in our business. And there are some things that I do and I look after in our business, and that's true for the other partners as well. So if you have your clear job functions that you define, then you start working like a team, and it works very well together. The other thing we also agreed is that on weekends we'll try very hard not to talk about business. Otherwise, we have nothing else to talk about. So, it's working. Until today, he's been my partner in business. Yeah.
So which one from the look of surfacing Ashok and you, I would assume you're the most, the pushiest or the most aggressive of the two?
No, do I look like that? I'm just a shy retiree.
I've met Ashok too. So if I have to just score it, I would probably the pendulum would gravitate towards you more.
You think so? Okay. I always tease him. I call him the used car salesman. No, I'm just kidding. But like he's a very affable kind of guy. He's very outgoing. He's more the business development kind of guy. I'm more of the creative, the marketing, innovation, R&D. So that's really what gets my juices flowing. I mean, other than also doing some of the management stuff. But I think if we both tap into what we love to do best, that's what he loves to do best, and this is what I love to do best. So that works.
So tell me something now. What really keeps you going? I find you very, very extremely positive. Talking to you, Meera, is a very positive affair. What keeps you really motivated, Meera?
What keeps me motivated? I think what keeps me motivated is that there's a world out there that I don't know enough about, and I'm curious as hell about it, And so everything that we do, every venture that I embark on, unfolds another mystery, opens up some amazing aspects of this world. So for instance, I moved from research, and I was largely doing research in India and South Asia.
Yeah.
And that was a whole new world of insight. Then I moved to America and I started selling a food brand there, and it opened a completely different world, and that's true also when I came to Singapore. I'm delighted to be in Asia. I find it very stimulating. And now we're also doing some business in China. And I find that a fascinating area.
There's the Green Planet Foods.
The Green Planet Foods. Yeah. So I think I'm just a curious nosy Parker.
You're a curious bug. Do you see that a lot in women, or is it just one of your traits? Because I'm like that. I'm a curious bug. I'm always asking questions. I'm always nosy, And my kids are telling me, Mom, why do you want to know everything? And sometimes people come and tell my kids that your mom is very scary. She asks too many questions. I said, yeah, but I'm not questioning a profession. I just want to learn, right?
Yeah, true.
But do you find this a very common trait in women generally, or do you find it also across?
No, I think both genders have it. It depends. It's more a personality thing, perhaps, than gender-based.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that. Yeah.
Yeah. And does that lead them to a very successful career, being curious? I mean, because I always seen leaders who are very inquisitive, want to learn, want to unlearn, want to be very prudent. I find them very, very open in terms of, taking up new job roles, positions, exploring new territories. Otherwise you're just sitting rigid in one place, right? I find that curiosity skill is it's a key ingredient to any kind of a growing phase of a person.
True.
I don't know I don't know what you can say about that.
I'm still growing up, so yeah. Yeah, I think curiosity is a fun trait. Yeah.
Tell me something about the COVID in Singapore, right? I mean, I know we had some different cases out here, and we had a lot of challenges. And I'm specifically trying to address a little bit about women in the sphere of the industry and successful women. And in my organization here, we have a diversity in terms of culture, religion, and also in terms of gender. And I saw during the COVID phase, right, I would see some of my female colleagues out here, I would say probably stressed, a little bit more highly stressed than probably the males. Of course, work from home was imminent, but I think there was a lot more effort the woman had to put. And I used to keep asking them a lot of questions, and some of them really came down for mentoring, came down for a lot of conversations. I don't know how it was in Singapore. I mean, did you have a similar kind of a situation in Seesaw?
I didn't encounter that, but then I think Singapore handled it fantastically well. So, I mean, we had in the last year, I think when it broke here because it was Chinese New Year, there was a lot of tourists here from Wuhan, and so it broke. And so Feb, March, April, May, I think around up until then, it was tough. But they also went into a complete lockdown. We were all under lockdown for about 2 or 3 months. And then the government really swung into action as only Singapore can. I mean, I'm just completely impressed by how well they've handled it. And I think from the middle of last year or so, it's not been difficult. It's not been that difficult. It's been difficult for people generally because, many people lost their small businesses, people who have, like daily wages. It's hard. It's economically been a little tricky for a lot of sections of society, but the government did lean in here quite a bit to help.
Yes.
Was it more tough for women than men? Probably, to the extent that women are also now saying we had to work from home. The kids are working from home and my husband's working from home. So now I'm juggling children. I'm the daycare, I'm the nanny, I'm the provider, and I've got a boss to respond to by the end of the day on email. And so she's, as always, doing it all. But this seems to be something that women do all the time. We do it well, but then, do we have to do it? I don't think we should, I think women just do so much.
I growing up years for me, growing up, and I think probably post that also during my early days of my career, I used to be some of my role models. I mean, I used to really follow. I used to follow the late Indira Gandhi. I used to follow Benazir Bhutto. I used to also follow Princess Diana. And then when I was in my career path, I used to be a great follower of Indira Nooyi, right? Pepsi. And I used to always look forward to reading her interviews or watching her interviews. And I think in one of the interviews she did mention that there was a question asked, can a woman have it all? And she said, of course they can have it all. What do you think about that? Because that is something I always tell my team here. I said, don't make reasons. You definitely can have it all. They come and say, no, it is not possible, madam. I can only do so much. I said, no, but you can always aspire for more. I don't know, what do you think about that?
Okay, it's a very layered question, actually. It's a complex question. So let me take a shot at it. First of all, there's this book, Lean In, by Sheryl Sandberg, that was so big in the early 2000s.
Yes.
You remember that book?
Yes.
Where she actually attempts to answer that question, where she says, lean in, participate, and you can do a lot more than you think you can, but make your voice heard, And so I found that a very interesting book because I remember when the book launched, I read it.
She was bold. She was very bold, I have to admit.
Yeah. Yes, it was a good book, very well thought out and well-written book. And I remember speaking to a lot of women at that time who were very impressed by the book and very inspired by the book. And so that was critical. Can women do it all? Yeah, I guess you can. You can. Should you be doing it all? That's the question. So while we exhort women to do it all and we tell women lean in and get it all done, I personally believe that the role definition that we have for men and for women still remains unequal. So when we say to a woman, you can do it all, what is that all? So if you break down all and you parse it down, it parses down to things like you can have a child, you can have a career, you can run your home, you can bring up your child, and you can do something post-career if you so choose to, right? And yes, of course, and along the way you can manage your husband and your family and everything else. And in certain cultures, the definition of family is much bigger than in other cultures.
Elaborate, yes.
Yeah. Now, what does it mean when you tell a man you can do it all? It normally means you can advance in your career. Full stop. Right there is an inequality that I think needs to be addressed. So we should not be anchored by the wrong question. It's like a Boolean problem in math where, if you sort of posit the wrong theory and then you get anchored and then you find a solution to support that theory that you posited. Yep. Right? So if we get anchored by the wrong question, you will look for the wrong answer. So the question is, do you think we women can do it all? I'm saying, why should you do it all? Can we ask men that? So can this world reach a stage where women say, I'll do my share of child rearing. Okay, I have to do the childbirth part, but other than that, I'll do my share of housework, my share of child rearing, and certainly my share of my career development. Now, flip to the man. And if you ask a man, can a man do it all? He has to be able to today, and this is the 21st century, it's high time Men leaned in. Everybody tells women, lean in, do this, do that. I'm saying, what the hell with it? Stop giving us instructional lectures and, inspirational lectures. Let's talk to the other side and say, lean in, dude. It's your child. So lean in on the child rearing, lean in on those sick, staying up at nights with a sick child. Lean in on saying, I didn't sleep all night because the child had a fever, but I have to get up in the morning and get to the office. But, you know what? Let me fix breakfast before I go. So to that extent, having it all is got to change in the 21st century. Definition has to change.
Is Ashok hearing this? I would love him to be there and giving you a thumbs up.
Oh, he agrees with me on this. Ashok's theory is most men are slackers.
So maybe next time I should interview him and ask him some similar questions the opposite side.
You should.
Reverse.
You should. Yes.
Okay, tell me something. I had to ask you this question, right? Now, what you're doing is I don't know if it's a very conventional idea, like seesaw, right? Seesaw is definitely very unconventional, which is something that you've started off and it's really taking pace. Now, how do you face unconventional ideas? So, for example, if you were to be given a new idea related to what you're doing, yeah, how do you approach that? What goes on to your mind when you're approaching a new, fresh, out of the blue, out of the block, kind of an idea?
Good question.
What do you?
It's a very good question. Well, it's making me think.
Because what you're doing now. See, of course, now it's established. It's establishing. Even when you were doing a preferred brands and the tasty bites, it probably it was not. I'm talking about 20-25 years ago, right? It was not a norm or a normal idea. And now coming to Seesaw, which is not a very commercial, but it is something to do with wellness. It's a very unconventional idea, which now obviously everybody will start looking at it. You will have repetition, you will have a duplication in the market, etc., right? Or you'll have many more. But then a new idea, which is out of the blue. So what goes on your mind? What do you look for? How do you approach it?
Well, yeah, that's interesting. I meet a lot of entrepreneurs, a lot of startups in our Seesaw world, because we obviously are also investors in addition to other stuff that we do. And every time I meet young startups, it teaches me two things. One, courage. What is the color of courage? Every time I meet these young people who have the courage to do what they're doing, it teaches me this is the color of courage. And I come away amazed at that. And it also teaches me to push my mind and say, so this guy came and told me about this crazy idea. Let's talk about, say, something like cell-based meats or cell-based dairy, the crazy ideas that they come up with. Your first instinct should not be to say, that's not going to work. So that's the first thing you learn by listening to these people. And they teach me a lot. So I find that I'm happy when I'm inspired by people. I know a lot of people say to be a leader, you have to be an inspirer of people. I don't agree with that. To be a good leader, you have to be inspired by others.
Oh, by within, yeah.
Other people have to inspire you. You have to look at, wow, and everybody inspires you, to think differently. So when I encounter something that's new, that's out there, or a new opportunity, so some of the things that are important is to first suspend your disbelief. Learn that. Jump into it and start digging. And I think the underpinning of that whole process is process. So process is important. There's a process to thought. There's a process to researching.
That's
There's a process to approaching it. Yeah, and that keeps you grounded. And and the other thing I learned in market research is confront your biases. So when you go into a meeting or when you encounter a new opportunity or someone tells you about something that's happening, your first instinct is to say, I don't know about that. Instead of saying that, confront your bias. Say, yes, I have a bias. Confront it, then table it. Don't run away from it. Because otherwise the bias creeps in very subliminal ways and subconscious ways. And that is toxic.
Yes. Okay.
Yeah.
Interesting. One question came to my mind right now. I was just thinking, just popped up, and I keep asking this to all my team members. What, according to you, Meera, is the definition of a financial freedom, of financial independence?
To be able to tap into an innate skill set and turn that into a financial expression is financial freedom. You could say financial freedom is a larger and larger paycheck, larger and larger earnings.
Yeah.
That's a conventional definition of financial freedom. But I think true financial freedom is to know that the root to that financial freedom is inside you, and that you have a certain skill set, and it can morph, circumstances can change, jobs can change, the world can change, post-COVID, pre-COVID, it's upside down, doesn't matter. There's something in you that you will tap into, a skill, a quality, a trait, a capacity. And you will say, I'll tap into it for fun, or I'll tap into it for financial freedom. And that's the cool part.
Has COVID slackened you, or has it actually given you a lot more boost?
COVID has been a pain, I have to grant, because, first of all, I haven't been able to travel at all. And, a lot of our business is dependent on travel. But then just talk about human ingenuity. I think, COVID has also given us Zoom. Look at us, look at the way we are talking. And I think that has been a big blessing in the sense that we've all leveraged technology more and more and learned to overcome some of the nuisances of the COVID life. So to that extent, I think that we've continued to work, we've continued to do stuff. There are some things that you can't do, so you have to learn to hold your patience and not be able to do it right now, but you will get there. So I think in the overall reckoning, it hasn't been as bad as I thought it might be.
Tell me something. If you had to list down 3 most memorable things of your life, what would that be?
3 most memorable.
You're proud of, and you could take that away and just say, you know what, I'm proud of the following. I'm proud of what I did.
I'm trying to see if I can think of 3. Let me give it a shot. But there is one thing that to me is...
Pick that even one. It's fine.
Okay. The most inspiring, touching, uplifting, humbling, and educational thing for me has been all the teams that I have worked with over the years. That has touched me in many, many, many ways and made me proud as well, because sometimes I've looked back and said, we're a pretty cool bunch of people, not bad. When we set off with the company, when we incubated this business, whichever one of the businesses it was, we didn't have all this. We were starting to grow, starting to build the team. But then you look back 10 years later, 20 years later, and you say, wow, what an amazing set of people, And those teams are what inspire me. Those are the teams that make me smile even today, even if I'm not collaborating with them in any form. And sometimes they make me proud, and I keep saying, hey, not bad, actually surrounded with good people, with great people. Yeah.
Work-life balance, how do you manage that?
I don't work.
So that's...
work-life balance is overstated in my books, or maybe I'm just, lucky or just weird or whatever. But I find that if you do what you love, then you're not working, really. That's an old adage, but it's so true.
Yeah.
And that's. But the other thing is that everybody can have work-life balance, and to give it a coin a term and make it, a big thing, a cross that you carry, an albatross around your neck, only makes that term heavier and heavier and heavier, as opposed to saying, I live my life. Work's part of life. So if life is seen as a big canvas, and you have lots of interests, and you have lots of friends, and lots of people, work is just one little cog in that whole process, and it's what you do. It's who you are sometimes, but it doesn't become you.
I'm going to ask you 1 or 2 more questions. Are you a sound sleeper? Do you sleep well in the night?
No, I'm an insomniac actually.
So what keeps you awake?
Oh, good grief. Um, I uh, I think I try and solve the world's problems. I'm sitting up at night with my head, churning away, and I'm trying to, think of things, solve this. What is this? So this doesn't ever stop. So it's not a good thing. It's not a good thing at
Yeah,
all
not the
because
thing.
I,
Yeah.
I sleep very few hours, but I'm fine. I get up in the morning, I'm like bouncing around, and and sometimes the show asks me, so what the hell is it? You slept how many hours? Was it like 4 hours, 5 hours? It's fine. I'm cool. And I have a full day, so I'm fine about it. Yeah, that's probably what keeps me up at night is that I'm thinking about stuff.
Now, you've been an entrepreneur for 30 odd or maybe 3 odd decades or more. You take risks, but being an entrepreneur also has its elements of risks in it. Has there been any risk that has been the most fulfilling, that's really made you content, happy?
People think of entrepreneurs as people who take risks. Nothing could be further from the truth. Entrepreneurs don't take risks. Entrepreneurs are very cold, calculated, systematic, process-driven people. Whereas I would argue that people who work for a company are taking huge risks because you are like 10 people away from the top, the decision makers. So the decision makers are making decisions that you have no part of. That's risky business. You're one cog in the wheel, you're just doing your stuff, and these guys are making some stupid decisions perhaps, or some good decisions. You don't know. Risky as hell. And then they tell you, here's your career advancement. This is what my HR manager is telling you. We think we need to move you from sales to this, to that. I mean, that's a risk. You're not the captain of your destiny.
Yeah.
Whereas entrepreneurs are very shrewd, very calculating, very smart, because they don't want to bet their shirt and their home and find that they lost it all. They take calculated risks. So we would look at it 360 degrees. I mean, you're an entrepreneur.
Would
you take calculated risks.
So would that mean would it be right to assume that when you are an entrepreneur and you have an organization you're running, you would like to have every single team member to be having the same entrepreneurial chip?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
Absolutely. You've got to build an ecosystem of entrepreneurs, because otherwise you can't say that I'm an entrepreneurial person. What does that mean? It's just you? Not at all. If you're an entrepreneurial person, you attract entrepreneurs. You build entrepreneurs. I say entrepreneurs carry also the load of having to not just run an enterprise that is innovative, but they also have to breed entrepreneurs. That's the duty of entrepreneurs, is that you must breed entrepreneurs. Everybody who works with you, comes in touch with you, collaborates, touches you in some way, you've got to inspire them to go off and be, entrepreneurial in whatever they're doing. You can be entrepreneurial within a team. It doesn't mean you have to go off and put your shingle up and set up your own business. It's not the only definition of entrepreneurship. But you have to breed this thinking, this thought process, and this personality of guys who say, I'm going to stick my neck out because I have this idea and I believe in it. I love that. In fact, I keep telling people who work with me that, just go ahead and make a mistake. For Pete's sake, make a mistake. You're never going to learn, So what happens? You fall on your back and we'll pick you up. We're all here. You dust yourself off. You learn something and you keep going.
And just move on.
Now go and make another mistake. But for God's sake, make a new one. Don't make the same one again. So that's entrepreneurship. Yeah.
Meera, thank you so much. I want to ask you one last question. I've never asked this question to any of my other participants. I don't think you'll ever hang your boots from your career. You look like a person who's constantly having a roller coaster wheel. I don't think a definition of hanging boots is ever there, Meera, for you.
No, I don't like the word retirement.
Yes.
It's a word I abhor, so no retirement. Retirement is when you're dead. So you'll be retired.
So we have more of Meera, but from the energy, I mean, God bless, but there's a lot of energy, a lot of learning, Meera. You should actually do you speak in the forums? Are you
I'm not a huge speaker. I speak now and then, but no, I'm not like a major speaker in any forum.
I personally think,
not in any structured way.
I personally think you would do well.
Thank Thank you. That's so sweet of you to say that.
Yeah, you should probably, maybe next venture, if ever, I think you could probably look at that.
Thank you. Thanks for that vote of confidence. Yeah, I might think about that.
Anytime, yeah. Meera, thank you so much. We're going to end this, but lovely chatting up.
Likewise, Jyoti. Always good to see you. Always good to chat with you. And thank you so much for this.
Yeah. We'll catch up very soon, Meera. Thank you.
Yes.
Again, no?
Yes. And see you soon, hopefully.
Yeah. All right. You take it.
Bye.